start with the class. Okay. So today's subject, we have actually two things to talk about today. First is a general understanding of what kind of classifications do we use for scripts. This is interesting, yeah, because there are so many. What groups do they belong to? What languages do they use? And then we have a continuation of the class is dedicated to Egypt. And I hope you're going to enjoy this because there are lots of interesting things. So writing is at the same time probably the most universal and the most elusive of things. And it's like the sun, sunlight and air that we breathe. It's so common and ordinary and so understood, but often it's not understood at all. So its history and its development have been has suffered as a result of misunderstanding of what writing is. So it escaped study in the most universities, formal study of writing. But for you to know, next time you hear a term paleography, paleography is a term used for the study of science of writing. Okay, so paleography is the term that we use. Now, can you guess how many languages in the world use a writing system? That's an interesting, if you just can come even close to a number. How many languages in the world? Yeah, Nate.
10,000 or more.
Do you think there are 10,000 languages in the world? No.
I was just shooting the shot.
It was an overshoot, but around 3,866 languages make use of the writing system, established writing system. Now, what do you think this is? What is it based on? It's based on a sign, on a drawing. It's pictographic, ideographic writing, right? So it's based on where sign is representing a concept or idea. Aztecs and other Mesoamerican systems were using that. Yes, Sana?
I actually have some information about the origins of writing systems. May I share?
Right now, you want to share that info? Is it very long?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of.
Okay, let's make a deal, okay? If I don't cover what you know, then you'll add it in the end, okay?
Okay.
All right. So these were the signs based on idea, on a concept, right? So there is a logographic, which is consonant based, right? So signs representing a word or a part of a word. Egyptian hieroglyphs belong in this category. So there is also logographic, which is syllable based, right? So Chinese, for example, is in this category. Egyptian, Hittite, Sumerian, and Japanese also. So signs represent syllables rather than individual sounds. This is the syllable-based logographic system. And there is a consonantal alphabet. Yeah. So all consonantal alphabets come from the same source, and that's the Proto-Sinaitic script. No vowels, only consonants. Arabic, Manichaean, Aramaic, Hebrew, Pahlavi, and other languages belong in this category. And then there is the segmental, or something that we call true alphabet. Now, true alphabet, Sona, maybe you can tell us what a true alphabet is?
What? I'm sorry. True? No, I don't know about that one.
A true alphabet, yeah. So true alphabet is when yes, Arthur, you know. Share it with us.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say it's basically the alphabet we use, which every sign, let's say character, is a single sound.
That's right.
Rather than a whole word.
Every sign is has a corresponding sound to it. Armenian is part of that. Cyrillic, Greek, Latin, Coptic, and other languages. So this is the segmental. Now, these are the general categories. 3,866 languages use an established writing system. But interestingly, of course, can you tell me why Armenian is unique? Well, not just Armenian, but few alphabets are unique. In what way they are unique?
Okay.
Guys, just raise a
go
hand.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, raise a hand, so I'll give you a cue. Ellen, yes.
As much I remember is that our letters are not being repeated in any other alphabets. They are unique in their style.
Close, Ani.
Yeah, I was gonna say that they have their own language family.
Yeah. So that's correct. Armenian letters are only used for Armenian language. Okay. Same goes for Georgian. Same goes for a few other. There are not so many. You'll be surprised that not so many alphabets are exclusive to the language. Of course, Latin is the alphabet that most European languages are written with, so they're using one writing system for many different languages, okay? And this is also a category in which Egyptian hieroglyphs belong, right? But before we talk about hieroglyphs, I want to say a few things about the visual aspects of the Egyptian art. Now, can you tell me, by looking at this, what would be a particular aspect of a depiction of human body, for instance, you observe when you look at the Egyptian art? Can you make a guess? What's the unique thing here?
Or profile perspective.
That's right, Arthur, I'm very correct. When they seek to represent a three-dimensional objects on a plane surface, the Egyptian artists avoided the perspectival solution of the problem, which, by the way, only Greeks have reached at the 5th century BC. Okay, the Greeks were the first ones to start using perspective. So why did they do this? To an Egyptian, the Greek vision of the natural world seen from a certain standpoint at a certain moment of time would have seemed to an ancient Egyptian as presumptuous and concerned only with illusion and mere distortion of reality. Yeah, so it was important for them not to express an individual view of reality, but to conform to a sanctified creative mode. This was the Egyptian mindset when it was coming to depicting things around them, right? And this non-perspectival vision placed the Egyptian artist in harmony with the world that he knew to exist. This is how it was for them. Now, figures become symbols rather than images. Excuse me?
May I say something about last topic, because we will move forward?
Yes, go ahead, Anit.
Actually, Armenian alphabet is not that unique because it comes from Ethiopian alphabet. And if I sent it in the chat, and if you look at Ethiopian alphabet, it is very, very similar to there are a lot of differences, but at the same time, Mesrop Marshtad took a lot of signs from Ethiopian alphabet.
Okay, since we have a class entirely dedicated to Armenian alphabet, I'll answer the issue that you raised now. But right now I can tell you that there is no linguistic connection between Armenian and Ethiopian, and purely based on a visual similarity. This is something that would never pass in academic point of view, because similarity, visual similarity, is never enough an argument to say that one language or one writing system borrowed from another. There must be a linguistic connection. A linguistic connection there is none, because Ethiopian is completely different.
Visual connection is obvious, right?
No, the visual connection is obvious, but I can tell you that I found Armenian looking letters in Egyptian. So can I say that Mesrop Mashtots borrowed Armenian letters from Egyptian hieroglyphs? I doubt it. He certainly has seen it, but we will discuss this when we talk about Armenian alphabet, okay? So we have to remember that for the Egyptian artist, symbols, figures become symbols rather than images. But we have to note that each element in the representation is rendered without distortion. They're true, they're staying true to the proportion of the human body. And in the case of a human figure, these various parts have a natural proportion to one another. And so goes the same, for architecture. Now, the success of the artist rests in a skill that he's shown in depicting naturalistic details. Sometimes, collarbone here at the neck, or the muscles of the leg that showed that they knew. I'm sure that they study anatomy just as well, because there was a lot of mummification going on in Egypt, right? So they certainly knew about human anatomy, but their purpose, and this is why I mentioned this again, they did not want to represent things as they saw it, but rather than being in general this artistic framework that was true for eternity, not for this particular moment. So this was an interesting mindset of the Egyptian artists. Yeah. So when they designed the facades of the palaces that they built, all that perception and the view of art came to its full realization. Yeah. So this use of symbolic forms in Egyptian art is intimately associated with the characteristic of Egyptian culture. An employment of hieroglyphs in system of writing basically has got no other counterpart in other civilizations. This is unique to Egypt. This is what we have to remember. Now, Egyptian hieroglyphs are among the most attractive forms of writing ever devised. We can say that with peace of mind. And maybe it's their aesthetic appeal as well as their religious sanction contributed to their retention, especially on monumental inscriptions throughout the whole course of pharaonic history. Yes, Mariam.
Sorry, I just want to clarify this terminology, I guess.
Yeah.
When you say writing, do you mean letters, or do you mean drawings, or do you mean both?
Okay, and here we come. The next following minutes will answer this question, Mariam, for you fully. What you see here is a famous palette of king whose name was Narmer, and this is called Narmer palette. And this is the first time and this is an archaeological discovery dated. This is the first time where we see signs that are no longer just drawings. Okay, they're not just drawings anymore. They are not more pictures. They start to become something else, and it happened. The first evidence of that is this palette. It's decorated with at the top with the animal heads. If you can see, there are two heads of a cow on the top of the palette, and that's Hathor, and I'll speak about her in just a moment. So this is an incunabula. Anybody ever heard that term, incunabula? It's a Latin word. Do you know what it means? Incunabula means cradle. So this term is used when we describe the beginning of printing, for example, early printed books called incunabula because they are the cradle. So this is also incunabula of hieroglyphic writing. Yeah. So we have to ask this question, whether the Egyptian writing, do you know of any other writing system that was used at the same time, approximately at the same time as Egyptian hieroglyphs? Any other writing system? No? All right. So naturally,
Arabic?
naturally that would be cuneiform, and cuneiform was widely used in Mesopotamia. And the question is, well, which system was the oldest? Was the cuneiform older than the Egyptian hieroglyphs? It's a moot question. We don't know exactly the answer. But Egyptian, they both took a similar course of development, but in difference from cuneiform, Egyptian writing was made in Egypt, used in Egypt, and died in Egypt. While cuneiform spread out of Mesopotamia, we also have used it. Our kings have used it. We have inscriptions in Van, in Erebuni, in different places that were done in cuneiform writing. Okay, so for nearly 15 centuries, men looked at this science with fascination without understanding their meaning. The last people that used this writing system were the 4th century BCE Egyptian temple priests. And they were so secretive that Greek and Roman scholars of that time believed that this amazing writing was nothing more but the magical symbols for sacred ceremonies. In 1799, I'm sorry, Napoleon troops were digging a foundation for a fortification that they were building in the Egyptian town of Rosetta. They were occupying that town. And they found a piece of black slab that bared 3 inscriptions on it. Egyptian hieroglyphs were there. There was Egyptian Demotic script and Greek. By the way, do you see this painting, right? It's by a very academic painter, a French painter who depicts Bonaparte visiting sick people at Jaffa in Palestine. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I want to ask you quickly, do you see any symbolism in this painting? Anything symbolic happening here?
The flag of France?
Okay.
Perhaps like everyone's how should I say it? Everyone is confused, so confusion.
No, I asked about symbolism. And the symbolic thing is, if you notice, the emperor is actually physically touching somebody who's sick with plague. Now, as you know, plague was a very deadly disease. And a painter paints Bonaparte, Napoleon Bonaparte, among people who were clearly in real life in a very dangerous situation, you know, but he's not afraid. He's touching the body and the wound of a man who's sick with plague. And that's, there is a symbolism embedded in that, you know, it's, if you just think about it for a minute, you'll understand why it happened. But let's go back to our, to Rosetta Stone. Now, as I said, 3 scripts are on it. It's in the British Museum. Now, it turned out that this was a decree, what the text, because Greek is there, we understand Greek. The inscription said, was describing a decree that was written in about 2nd century BCE to commemorate the ascension of Ptolemy V, the pharaoh, to the throne of Egypt. So this was the text. And because the Greek was there, who decoded Egyptian hieroglyphs? Do you remember the name of the man responsible for that? Nobody. His name was Jean-François Champollion. Okay. And he realized, how did he do it? He realized that some signs were alphabetic, some were syllabic, and some were determinatives. Anybody knows what determinative is in linguistics?
Maybe a symbol signifying the whole world, a word or concept.
No, the signs that determine how the preceding glyphs should be interpreted. So you put a sign there, and that sign says that the word before that should be interpreted in this way. This is the determinative. Now he realized that the hieroglyphs often functioned as phonograms and not simply pictograms. And he found out the name of Ptolemy and Cleopatra by just comparing the text in Greek to the text in hieroglyphic and demotic script. He found out the two names which actually help him to decode the entire thing. So here you see, this is the front of the Dendera temple, which I'm going to show you a little bit later. And two figures on the left are the Ptolemy and Cleopatra. This is the Egyptian pharaoh Ptolemy V and his wife Cleopatra. Now, like I said, Egyptian writing was essentially national. Originated in Egypt, developed in Egypt, and employed only for Egyptian speech. There were two scripts that were born from hieroglyphs. One was called hieratic and the other one was called demotic. There are the cursive versions of the hieroglyphic writing that actually made it a little bit faster and easier to record the information, okay? Because it's more cursive, so it's faster. And when you write, and hieroglyphs are drawn, so it would take a lot of time to write text down. So people sped up out of practicality, and two scripts were born in that. Now, nobody can wander through museums or Egyptian galleries in different museums without being struck by this multitude of divinities that, you know, attract attention on all sides. These colossal statues in sandstone, in granite and bronze, sometimes even gold, that portray gods and goddesses frozen in this hierarchical attitude, seated or standing. And sometimes these figures are, you know, blend human body with animal parts. And sometimes there is a beak of a bird. Who knows which god is here, depicted here? Okay, which animal is represented in this head?
The bird and what?
Octopus.
Wasn't it Ra?
It's Ra and it's Hawk, I think.
It's a hawk.
Yes.
And that's Horus. And there's a very interesting myth how he lost his eye. But okay, not gonna tell you the Egyptian mythology now, but if you want to read it, go ahead and find out. It's connected to Osiris and birth and rebirth, and Osiris' story is connected to Christ and birth and resurrection, death and resurrection, etc. So fascinating connections over there. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about this goddess because, well, I like her. And she was important in Egypt. Her name was Hathor, and she was described as the daughter of Ra and the wife of Horus. Now, who was Ra?
Ra was the supreme god.
God of sun.
The god of sun.
The god of sun.
Ra was the Amon, Ra, Amun, Amon, Ra was the god, the chief god, the supreme god, and represented sun. If you ever been in Egypt, anybody been in Egypt? And I don't mean the Sharm el-Sheikh diving resort, Egypt. You know, Cairo, Egyptian Museum. Have you ever been there? Well, even if you've never been, well, I'm sure that you can relate to this. The reason why sun was the chief god in Egypt was simple. When sun is out, everything bends to its will. It's so hot that from 10 o'clock in the morning until almost 4 or 5 in the afternoon, the human activity ceases to be active because it's just terribly hot. I was there in August, and I can tell you, foolish me, I wanted to take a ride around the pyramid, and I came, and this guy, you know, he's standing there with the horse, and I look at this thing, and it's unbelievable, right? When you see it with your own eyes and not on a photograph, you're shocked by the size and the sheer scale of that structure. So he tells me, do you want to go on a ride around the pyramid? And foolish me, I say yes. Well, I can tell you that 2 minutes later, I deeply regretted that decision. And the horse was also very regretful, because when I looked at him, he said, you know, look at him and said, you know, come on, man. I mean, I can't do this. So we quickly quit. But that taught me a lesson. Yes, son, everything bends to its will in Egypt. And that's the reason why Amun-Ra was the chief god. Very simple. Now, Hathor, she had a fetish in which she liked to embody herself. This is called a sistrum, and it's a musical instrument. It's actually like a cymbal, you know, when you shake it, it makes this interesting sound, and it was used to drive away evil spirits. So in this Dendera temple, and I'll show in a second, it has the columns of the temple are devised, conceived as these giant, colossal sistrums, which are this musical element. Now, sometimes she was called the mother of Horus, and for her name can also signify the dwelling of Horus, and it was explained that with her the sun god resided, being enclosed each evening in her breast to be born again each morning. Now, she was a great celestial cow who created the world and all that it contains, including the sun. So she is in consequence represented as a cow, which was her sacred animal, or a cow-headed goddess. Now, although she was well disposed toward those that were alive, she cherished the dead even more tenderly. Under her name, Queen of the West, she was the protectress of the Theban necropolis, a place where pharaohs were buried. She was also used to call a lady of the sycamore. She would hide in a tree, and here you can see this tree. This is the sycamore tree. She would hide in a foliage of the sycamore tree in a desert, on the edge of the desert, to appear to dead with bread and water to welcome them into an underworld. So her primary sanctuary was at Dendera, and she was worshipped there in company of her husband, Horus of Edfu, and their son, who was the sistrum player. So this complex, and this is interesting, I haven't reached Dendera. When I was in Egypt, as far as I went was Luxor and Valley of the Kings, the place where the necropolis that has a lot of incredible caves, sometimes 100 meters underground. You have to go until you reach this little room, 2 by 2 meters wide. Incredible feeling, by the way. The first and the only time I ever went so deep underground, I was you know, the physical experience of going there, and of course the entire ceiling and the walls around you are painted with the scenes of the afterlife, and you climb down on stairs for about 100 meters beneath the ground to reach a small room. Now, the feeling that you have is that you are going into an underworld. You are passing through this sort of a tube that takes you somewhere else, and the feeling is quite interesting. So the temple itself is around 63 kilometers from Luxor, and like I said, I've never visited there. Maybe someday I will, but judging from the photographs, it looks like this is an island left untouched by time. It's also very well preserved. It's one of the best preserved temples in Egypt, the Dendera temple. Now, Hathor, Greeks associated Hathor with Aphrodite. So she enjoyed the immense popularity because she was the goddess of joy and love. She also loved dancing, you know, that she was the mistress of music and singing and leaping and jumping and waving of the garlands. Her temple was, in quotes, home of intoxication and a place of enjoyment. Yeah, she was a merry goddess. Now, this temple is incredible because the entire ceiling in Dendera is covered with this vast cosmos filled with stars and our goddesses and zodiac signs, and these gods are represented and personified by weird creatures like snakes walking on long legs and birds with human arms and jackal heads. Here, for example, you see a frog-headed god, He, that was his name, and a snake-headed goddess, Hehet, and they were the personification of infinity. And they are goddess, you know, there are 4 pairs of frog, snake-headed, male, female gods that symbolize the primeval waters, darkness, invisibility, and infinity. So gods in Egypt, gods and goddesses in Egypt were all symbols, concepts, quite incredible. Here is the ceiling of one of the crypts, and you can see it's actually, here is the head of Hathor in a square. And what goddess would be this one? Can you guess? Look at her. What goddess or goddess that would symbolize what? I just pay attention to what's going on there.
Wind.
Who would she be?
Sun, maybe.
Rebirth or something, I don't know.
Maybe the goddess of Nil.
Someone that people kneel down to.
Now you see, okay, let me ask you a few questions, maybe that will help you decide. In which position is she? Do you see her arms here? Is she covering something?
I mean, there's a tree, there's a plant. So what if it's something to do with plants?
No.
Is it night?
The tree is a sycamore tree and is related to Hathor, and there is Hathor. But who is she?
A mother.
Okay. So this is Nut.
This
This is Nut, guys. This is Nut, and she is the goddess of the night sky. If you look at her dress, you see these waves, yeah? This wave pattern on her dress. This is the river, the cosmic river on which the sun god traveled during the night until he would reach a morning and be born again. So this is Nut. These are the sun rays that are coming, and this is the sun here, and this is the Nut. She is the dawn. She is the night sky. Yes, Nane, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say that the cosmic river reminded me of the cosmic ocean in Hinduism. You know,
Yeah, it's
God's lake.
good point. Yeah, I mean, again, the thing I want you to try every time you look at an image and pay attention to details, try to, you know, to use your associative skills to relate that to a concept or an idea so you can understand. Clearly, there are things hinting here to which goddess would be depicted on the ceiling, yeah? So here you see Osiris, and he sails across the sky as a full moon, as a personification of full moon. Arthur, go ahead, you asked.
Just wanted to ask a small question about the previous picture. So if that's the sun with the sun rays, should we suppose the other circle is the moon, just without the sun rays?
Perfect observation, correct?
Is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So this is the fruit that you reap when you look at details and relate them one to another. Clearly, one is the sun, there are rays coming on it. We have two celestial bodies in the night sky. Well, we can't see the sun because it's on the other side. But then, of course, it's the moon and there are no rays coming from it except the reflected light. Now, one thing about Egyptians you need to always remember, they were very peaceful people. They were very peaceful people. They were not at all aggressive toward their neighbors. They believed in concepts of universal justice. And for them, the sense of justice was very important. They had a goddess, and you see, there is she. She has this feather on her head, and this is the goddess Ma'at. Ma'at is the justice. And she is omnipresent everywhere in Egyptian reliefs. So here again, another depiction of the sun being born from the lap of from the mouth of the goddess Nut. And Sirius, of course, they knew a lot about astronomy. When I was in Cairo, I could not see a single star because the air is so polluted that you just see nothing over there. But that certainly was not the case 4,000 years ago. And they studied astronomy very well. By the way, the positions of the geographical positions and coordinates of the Great Pyramids in Giza absolutely match position of the stars in the sky as no accident. They knew very well about astronomy, and not just astronomy. By the way, they invented mathematics. And did you know why? Out of a very practical reason. The Nile, the great river that gives birth to everything live in Egypt, would leave its banks and flood the entire delta. Now, people owned land, and when the Nile was flooding the land, they could not, and then the waters receded, they could not actually measure their land. They did not know where their land ended and the neighbors' one began. So what they did, they started to measure it. They started to put a signposts and be able to measure the land, so when the water would recede after the flooding of the delta, they could restore their property. So this is the earliest use of mathematics to actually solve a very practical issue. It happens every, the delta of Nile is flooded every year. So there are interesting creatures on the wall, on the ceiling, also these strange creatures with the 4 wings. Now, Arthur, since you are so good at it, can you possibly guess what why 4 wings, and what could this creature possibly represent, in your opinion?
I'm not even gonna try.
I'm not even gonna try. But does number 4 tell you anything? What do we have when it?
4 seasons, 4 elements.
4
Can
elements?
I try?
Okay, what else?
Maybe the 4 sides like north, south, west, east,
That's
south.
right, Aram, very well. 4 cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. Also 4 winds, different winds that blow from from 4 directions. And this figure, it's a ram, and you see it has a ram head and 4 wings. We find these figures only in Greco-Roman period in Egyptian history. They do not appear before that. So this is clearly a connection with the Greek world. And there you have this black bull, black raging bull. That's the zodiac sign Taurus. And he's like, he stoops under the weight of this big white moon. Again, this sign is of Babylonic Greek origin, and is not found in Egypt anywhere before Alexander the Great conquered it in the 4th century BC. Here you have sun depicted as his falcon-headed form. The gods took different forms. Sometimes you had a sun that would have a falcon head like Horus, and the gods would have this metamorphosis happening to them. Is on his bark that sails across the sky. And there are all sorts of different deities represented by many stars painted. It's a fantastic, absolutely marvelous place filled with so much art that it's difficult to describe. Now, because we're running a little bit of time, the last thing I want to show you, by the way, you see, this is a temple of Hathor. So her head is over here on the top of the column, 4 heads pointing in 4 different directions. And this is the ceiling that was cleaned up. Now, do you see the contrast? You see how much dirt collected on that ceiling, and when they restored it, all these beautiful colors came back to life. Before restoration, it was almost black. And this is the last image I want to discuss with you before I let you go. There's a lot of speculation about what is going on over here. It's again in Hathor Temple. It's one of the most controversial reliefs in Egyptian art. And I want you to try to guess what's so controversial about this image. What does it remind you of when you look at it? Interesting question. Okay, Arthur, describe to me, what do you see here?
I see 2 snakes buried in eggplants. That's so strange.
Right. Okay,
but at the same time,
snakes they are. Snakes they are. No doubt, they look like a snake. They have a head of a snake. Certainly it is.
Oh my God, I know.
Okay.
But I'm not going to say it. No, I'm not going to say it.
Why not?
No, I'm not going to say it, but I know.
Okay, no, but don't tease us, you say, I know, and then you don't say it. That's not fair.
No, I'm not going to say it. You say it. And
Okay.
I'll see if I was right.
All right, so I'll tell you, this is a subject of discussion where Arthur saw 2 snakes inside of shapes resembling like an eggplant. But some people say that these are actually light bulbs. And the fact that Egyptians knew electricity, they knew how to produce electricity. This sounds like completely berserk idea, does it? I mean, what electricity? We are talking about a temple that was built 4,000 years ago. What electricity? Arthur, yeah.
Yeah, the middle detail looks like
okay,
a
there is
part
this
of the
little
light bulb
thing
that you
here.
would screw on.
What the hell is this? I mean, this doesn't look like nothing organic. It looks mechanical. It looks like this is a device, right? So how the hell did they produce electricity? Well, electricity is actually very easy to produce if you know how. All you need is a piece of copper, and you place it into acid, which you can also get organically. And well, I'm not an engineer, but I know that electricity is not a big deal if you know how to make one. Now, remember I told you that I went into the burial place of the pharaohs, right? And I had to go 100 meters underground. Do you know what fascinated me there? Is that how the hell did they paint the ceilings in complete darkness? I mean, 100 meters below ground, there is no source of light and there is no window. Absolutely no light could penetrate that deep. How did they paint it? In darkness? Impossible, right? Okay, so some of you might say they used mirrors. Could it possibly be provide enough sunlight to penetrate 100 meters below the ground if you use powerful mirrors? Could be, could work, but then the mirror would point in one direction. It would not spread the light around, so it would probably penetrate right down the shaft, But then how did they paint the walls? Okay, you might say they light fires. No fire was ever burned there because they took samples, and if there was a fire in that place, there would be a trace of it. So how did the hell Egyptians lit a room 100 meters below the ground and painted it with the fascinating style, with so much precision and detail that seems to me impossible. Now, I don't like to believe in conspiracy theories, and most serious Egyptologists would laugh at this idea and would say that this is connected to Egyptian mythology. And this is actually the mythological depiction of jaded pillar and a lotus flower that was spawning a snake within and connected to Egyptian mythology. It's all the story of the Osiris and etc., etc. So, but I don't know, I'm a dreamer. I think there is a little, maybe even a little chance that the story of the light bulb in Egyptian culture could be true. Yes, Narek?
I wanted to ask then how like Egyptologists explain like drawing on ceilings 100 meters below the ground.
I don't know.
Like, how do they explain then?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I can tell you one thing. Your assignment for the week will be Egypt, and maybe you can find out for me. Maybe when you do your assignment, you can incorporate an answer to this question. How do the research, try to find out how the hell did they paint 100 meters below ground without any source of light? Ah, by the way, the last thing I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to let you go. And that's a fact. This is not a discussion. This is not a hypothetical interpretation of anything. About 10 years ago, there was a sarcophagus found in Egypt that was carved out of one piece of quartz rock. One piece. Now, what amazed the archaeologists when they found it is that the corners, the inside corners of that sarcophagus had absolutely perfect 90 degrees. Now they said, and there were no signs of any tools used on that surface, because if it was carved, there would be markings. There was absolutely no sign that the tool touched that surface. So what they did, they said, let's try to reproduce this with the modern technology. And they sent that sarcophagus to the United States, to a factory that is using today's tools, and said, can you make one of these? And they said, we can't. We cannot reproduce it. With the modern technology, we still cannot reproduce this. So that's interesting. Certainly, that's interesting. So they knew a lot more than we think that they know. And that also makes me, guess that the use of electricity in Egypt could actually be true. So this is it, guys, for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I enjoyed it also. It was interesting to talk about this, and I love Egyptian art. I think it's beautiful, and hieroglyphs are beautiful because they are drawings, and there is this sense of mystery about them that I love very much, and I love mythology, so it's all good on this end. I'm gonna upload the class online, so you can download the PDF file with all the text on it and read it and reread it if you like. Okay?
Can I ask something very quick? I know you have to go.
Sure.
You know how you, in the feedback, you said that we should try to put the picture on the whole page, but like my picture is a square and the presentation is like kind of rectangular. Yeah. So how do we do it? And you also said that we shouldn't stretch the pictures.
Oh yeah,
so
I said by all means stretch the pictures, just don't deform them. Scale them up.
Oh,
don't deform.
You said we can stretch them.
Yeah, you can stretch them, fill out the page. If you have a good quality image, you can enlarge it without losing much quality. I said do not distort them. So when you talk about
Okay.
detail, instead of cutting it out in small size, blow it up. Show it full page. Okay, scale it up.
Okay.
Just don't deform it.
All right. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, guys. So I'll bid you goodbye. We'll meet day after tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.